Good evening and welcome to TEDxUHSP. My name is Samantha Harker and I'm a senior at the University of Health Sciences and Pharmacy. My co-organizer Kim Hill and I have worked together in planning and organizing the University of Health Sciences and Pharmacy's first ever TEDx event, and we could not be more excited to showcase everybody's hard work. Tonight, we have a lineup of 5 incredibly talented speakers, all with diverse stories and backgrounds. One thing that all of our speakers share in common is that they have all chosen to face forward. Whether it be in their own lives or on campus, every speaker has made the active choice to face forward and move forward as a part of their communities. Facing forward means making the active decision to face forward and evolve. Everything on campus has evolved within the past year. The university evolved to become the University of Health Sciences and Pharmacy. Our knowledge about technology services evolved through programs such as Zoom and Teams. Our safety measures evolved to take precautions against COVID-19. And we evolved as individuals, embodying traits of resilience and grit. Looking back, we can reflect on all of the challenges we had to face. But in the grand scheme, forward enables us to change our perspectives and strive for improvement. Kim and I could not be more proud and excited to have worked with everyone on the TEDxUHSP team. And we hope that you enjoy our event as you face forward towards our speakers and the future. Thank you.
What does facing forward mean to me? Facing forward means to me the opportunity to look into the future and to find the path ahead, find that journey that makes you happy and excited, and travel into positivity.
What facing forward means to me is having a love for learning, to be able to be curious about things that you want to be curious about, to be in an environment that allows you to thrive in your respective field, to love what you're doing, to always improve every day upon something that you want to improve on.
To me, facing forward means looking back on our past and seeing what we can change for our future.
Facing forward to me means growing as an individual and helping others around me grow as well. I want to help others and myself learn to grow as a community and evolve as a whole.
For me, when I think about facing forward, I think it's about growth and change. And I think we advance the most, ourselves, society, science, technology, when we think critically about whatever issues at hand and look at things through a different lens. I think finding new ways of thinking about things is just as important as finding new things to think about.
When I think of facing forward, I think of a few words. A word that comes to mind is being courageous. I think of the word enlightening. I think of being innovative. When I think of facing forward, I think of the word evolving and what that means. I hope that we take this time to look forward with an optimistic lens.
Facing forward is an action. Facing forward it's the gray area between thinking about changing your life and actually taking the steps to change your life. It's a movement in the right direction.
Our first speaker this evening has been a faculty member at UHSP since 2018. He currently serves as an associate professor in the Basic Sciences Department. Please welcome Dr. Ben Jelen.
All right. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to start off by saying the last time I had a presentation with one of our speakers was during a summer immersion program. And about halfway through the lab demonstration, Bear comes up to me and in no uncertain terms tells me, I have a huge tear in the back of my pants. She said, some of the students were asking about it, but it's okay. She's like, I told them, you know about it. You actually wear these pants all the time. I was completely embarrassed, shocked. I had no idea this was an actual thing. So I quickly untucked my shirt to sort of cover up for this wardrobe malfunction and spent the rest of the lab period kind of skirting around with my back to the wall. So I think last time I was out, I accidentally gave a very literal demonstration of facing forward. Now, I don't think that's the definition I want to go with and operate under tonight. To me, what facing forward is about is everything about growth and change, evolving. It's about critically looking and evaluating at what's in front of you, looking at things through your own lens, asking how and why and what if. And I think when you do that, it can be really revolutionary and very powerful. So I think, and to give you an example of this, Jim Henson, the creator of the Muppets, wanted to get into television because he thought that was a way that he could reach a large number of people and spread his message about believing in yourself, humanity, basically being good, supporting one another. So he went down to the television station, applied for a job, and they told him no. But on the way out, on the bulletin board, he saw a job announcement that the station was hiring puppeteers. So he literally went down to the library and checked out a couple books about puppetry, built some puppets, went back to the TV station and said, I'm a puppeteer, will you hire me? And they said, yes. And the rest, of course, as they say, is history. And he went on to completely revolutionize the way puppetry is done. And with doing that, realized his dream of reaching large numbers of people. And I bring this up as an example because when he reflected on it, he had a really interesting quote. And I wrote it down because I didn't want to butcher it. So he said, I think we, as the Muppets, broke new ground because we approached puppetry from a different angle. I think if you learn too much of what others have done, you may tend to take the same directions as everyone else. And you can get stuck in a rut. You can keep cycling through day after day doing the same thing. Right? One definition of insanity is doing the same thing in the same way and expecting a different result, right? So I think this can be really profound and you can really change things if you step outside of the box. Now, I'm in the sciences. I teach science. I tell my students, I think one of the most important things that you can take out of an undergraduate education is to be able to think, to learn how to think and think critically. And we do this in science. We use the scientific method, which is basically we ask causal questions, which are how and why, and then we bend that into a statement that's testable and falsifiable. And then we go out and we test things. So science moves forward by falsifying ideas. You never actually prove anything in science. One of my favorite quotes is, science is a cemetery of dead ideas. And also, science tells us, never take anything for granted, right? Do your due diligence. No explanation should be accepted simply because it's plausible and charming. And I think when you take this approach, you'll find some of the things that we've thought were true for long periods of time are actually completely not what's going on at all. For example, let's chat about giraffes for a second. And we can ask a causal question of, why do giraffes have such long necks? And for me, I'd always thought or assumed, right, that giraffes had long necks to reach way high up in the canopy and forage on leaves that no other animals could reach, right? That makes so much sense. It's just got to be true, right? And I bet I'm not the only person who thinks that's why giraffes have long necks. And I thought this for years, but I never actually followed any giraffes around and watched where they eat. And I don't know if anybody in here has, but some people have, and this is what they report, is when giraffes forage, they lower their heads down to shoulder height and forage on the leaves. So much for that explanation of giraffes having long necks. So the question remains, why do giraffes have such long necks? Well, it turns out that male giraffes do what males of lots of other animal species do, which is fight or engage, as we say, engage in ritualized male-male agonistic encounters. Much easier just to say fighting, right? This typically happens during the mating season. And the way two male giraffes fight is they line up next to one another and they take turns swinging and banging their heads into the other giraffe. And basically the last giraffe standing wins. And who wins typically has a little bit longer, stronger, thicker, heavier neck than the giraffe who doesn't win. And then this is typically tied with mating and reproductive success. So the males with slightly longer necks and the genes controlling slightly longer necks are then passed into the next generation at a little bit higher frequency. So strong selective pressure for longer necks. Fast forward this, lots and lots and lots of generations. What are you left with but an animal with a really long neck? Right? So that's one plausible explanation of why this is. And again, it'll hold merit until we show otherwise. And I think, what I thought about then was if I've been wrong about giraffes my whole life, what else have I been wrong about? What else have I just taken for granted as truth with not actually doing my due diligence? And to me, and I'm most interested with my research in ecology, particularly how animals interact with the environment, how they interact with each other, communication, movements, anything along the sort. I'm particularly interested in reproductive ecology. So, and to me, this was the idea that I'd always heard also are led to believe about animal mating systems, is kind of this idea with the giraffes, where two males fight, and basically the female giraffe is just a passive participant in the mating system. And I thought, well, that doesn't make sense, because to me, anything about reproductive ecology does make sense as long as you remember this. Right off the bat, there is a huge difference in the amount of energy that each sex invests in the next generation. Males make millions or even hundreds of millions of very energetically cheap sperm, and females put a ton of resources into eggs. Now, it could be 1 or 2 eggs like in humans, or 8 or 10 like a litter of kittens or puppies. Some snakes can give birth to 80 to 100 individuals. Sea turtles, when they come up for nesting, can lay 6, 7, 800 eggs over the course of a few weeks. So that is a huge amount of energy investment. And to me, the more I invest in something, the more interested I am in what's happening. I'm not going to be passive about it. So what I did then was I put transmitters in female snakes, and I followed them up to 6 times a day during the mating season. And I took all sorts of notes about when the snakes moved, how much they moved, what partners they were with in terms of mating. And also 2 to 3 times a week, I sampled their hormone levels. So if you'll indulge me for a second, we need to chat about snakes and animal mating systems here. So how do snakes find one another during the mating season? Well, their eyesight's pretty bad. Plus, they're really usually low to the ground, so vegetation and sticks get in the way. They don't have ears, so they can't shout, "I'm over here," right? So they use chemicals, chemosensation. So they produce hormones that leave the body, which are pheromones. And these pheromones contain information about where the individual is, the reproductive status of the individual, if it's male, female, healthy, not healthy, age, etc. Right? And the entire mating season, males are moving around, 6 to 8 weeks spent moving around looking for females or their pheromonal trails. And this is really risky behavior, right? As they move more, they're more likely to be spotted by predators, more likely to wind up crossing a road and getting squished, or for snakes in particular, they might wind up meeting an angry person with a shovel that then chops them in half, right? So very risky. Females, on the other hand, right, have this condensed down. They do move during the mating season, but it turns out they do so only when it's their absolute best interest to do so. So think about how snakes shed, right? The entire whole outer surface comes off at once. And these pheromones that are being produced by the female surge coincident with shedding. And then they're transported through this cardiovascular system and sequestered under the skin. So when the female snake sheds, all of a sudden this concentrated burst of attractant is released out into the atmosphere. And then for 10 days following that, when their hormones are at their peak and the pheromones can get out into the wild, into the environment the most, they start moving. So they've condensed it down, their risky behavior, to a 10-day period. Right? So they have this figured out, right? While males are spending the entire time getting run over, getting eaten, getting chopped, females condense the risky behavior down to 10 days, and they're doing so to help males follow them. They're very active participants in the mating process. So to bring this full circle, what can snakes teach us about facing forward? A lot of cultures have beliefs and ties to snakes. You have the Ouroboros, the image of the snake swallowing its own tail as a symbol of infinity and life and death cycles. And this image of the shed, right, of the snake crawling out of the shed is a very powerful image in a lot of cultures. And they liken that to immortality, rebirth, regeneration. So I would say, just as the snake periodically sheds its skin, we need to periodically shed our old ideas and experience new perceptions. And I think we do this best when we think critically, evaluate what's in front of us, ask how, ask why, ask what if, right? So as you move forward through this crazy world of ours, I implore you, ask these questions, right? Look at the world through your own lens, right? Or even just tilt your head to get a different point of view of things. So as you move forward, don't only just look forward, but lean forward. And by all means, if you have a tear in your pants, face forward. Thank you.
Our second speaker this evening is a sophomore at UHSP. She's involved with the fine arts programs and participates in choir, band, and musical theater. Please welcome Maya Hartig.
Hey, how are you? How's school? I'm sorry that I haven't talked to you in a while. All of a sudden, I'm an adult and I don't have enough hands. If I could write an essay about the effects of music on the brain and a letter to you at the same time, I would. I really would. I heard you moved. I heard you don't live at the same house that you lived at when I dropped you off last summer. Do you remember your 9th birthday? We went swimming at the lake and ate burgers with your friend. I let you pick the music we listened to on my car radio that barely worked, but you were still grateful. I do. I remember the way you laughed and smiled the entire time we were celebrating. I remember when you cried the day before because another girl was being mean to you. And I remember 2 years ago when a butterfly landed on your nose. I wish I had a picture of that moment. You had the funniest expression on your face. I miss you. I miss the way you made me laugh, and I miss your hugs. Don't ever forget how beautiful you are. And don't ever forget how much you are loved. These are the words I wish that I had heard as a 9-year-old. They are the words I wish I could say to the girl that I mentored over the summer of 2021, but haven't had the courage. I have a question. Have any of you been to Montana? If you haven't, I'll set the scene for you. Purple mountain majesties, fields of gold, more cows than you can count, and just about the most abrupt disparity of wealth you have ever seen. I'm talking McMansions in a trailer park sandwich. Got the picture? I've lived in Big Fork, Montana since I was 6 years old. I love my family, I love my community, but most of all, I love my kids. Well, they're not my kids. For the last 3 years, I've worked at a summer camp in my hometown. We took in all kinds of kids, and sometimes a little more than we could handle, but we always made it work. Our job was to make sure that they had a fun, productive summer, and we wanted each and every single one of them to know that they were dearly, dearly loved. Now, I could tell you 3 stories about every single kid that I've worked with over the last 3 years. Every single one of them impacted me and has taught me so much. The kids of that camp have shaped me into who I am today. But I only have 10 minutes of your time, so the girl that I want to tell you about gave me one of the most impactful experiences I have ever had. For today's purposes, we'll call her Taylor. I first met Taylor when she was 7 years old, going into 2nd grade, and my first impression of her was admittedly not that great. I think of the 3 years that I knew her, most of my time was spent mitigating some fight she got herself into. But she was strong, and she was so funny. I saw in her the potential to be kind when she wanted to be, and saw right through the temper tantrums that threw my coworkers for a loop. She could always say just the right thing to get you to cave, but with me, she knew it wouldn't fly. With me, she knew that things were going to be a negotiation that started with deep breaths and a drink of water. Now, don't get me wrong. I would love for you all to think, wow, she must be an amazing communicator, but the truth is, I connected with Taylor the first time I ever met her. Tall for her age, with interests that didn't come with a flock of friends, and having people bully her exclusively for her weight, that was me. I looked into Taylor's eyes and I found myself staring back into my own. So when I say that I saw right through Taylor's temper tantrums, I mean that I used the same tactic at 8 years old and knew what I needed to say to make it go away. I quickly learned how to mitigate all of her fights because I knew exactly why she started them. Now, I was not a perfect kid. In fact, I would go so far as to say that I was a pretty insufferable one. Sorry, Mom and Dad. It wasn't because I wasn't loved or cared for by other people. Knowing what I know now, it was because I wasn't loved or cared for by myself. In my head, I was my own worst enemy, my worst bully. I was embarrassed and ashamed of the same behavior that continued to get me in trouble, but I could never seem to stop repeating. And I didn't want that for Taylor. I had seen it happen to me, and I wanted so badly that she would never have to go through it. But I was just her camp counselor. I saw her 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for maybe 8 weeks, assuming that neither of us took any sick days. And I had 10 other kids to manage, assuming that I didn't take a few extra. Any influence that I could have, anything that I could do, was forced to a minimum. The littlest things, I have found, can make the biggest difference. "Good morning, beautiful," I would say to her as she walked through the door. She always knew that I was never too busy for a hug, and that walking next to me was a privilege, not a punishment. I took Taylor and her friend out for her 9th birthday after a fiasco the year before when she had invited several kids to her party and none of them showed up. I wasn't her mom, and I wasn't her older sister, but I was someone, and hopefully that was enough. We really should be investing in our children. Every single child represents almost 100 more years of potential for human development. Every single child has a purpose, every single child has a place, and every single child deserves a family, whether it be by blood or by camp counselor. Too many kids are left neglected by their peers simply because they look different or they have underdeveloped social skills or for no good reason at all. Our job as adults is to be a safe space for every kid, for the kids who are bullied, for the kids who get bullied, and especially for kids like Taylor. Now, I'm afraid I can't give you a very formative ending here today. The change that I wanted to make in Taylor's life isn't something that could have happened over 1 or 2 or 3 summers. The change that I wanted to make had to have happened over years of mentoring and communication. But I will leave you with this. Taylor's mom came to pick her up one day, just as she did any other. I said, "Go get your things," just as I did with every other kid. And Taylor gave me a hug on her way out, just as she did every day. But this day, she looked up at me and she said, "Miss Maya, you are beautiful." I just smiled and I said thank you before I watched her climb into her car and be driven away. I can still hear her voice in my head. "Miss Maya, you are beautiful." She doesn't know how much those words impacted me that day, and maybe she never will. But I don't expect those words to leave my head anytime soon. On the days that I don't feel beautiful, I can look into the mirror and hear her saying, "Miss Maya, you are beautiful." When I walk out of a test feeling like I've failed, I know that she would say to me, "Miss Maya, you are so smart." The negative thoughts that race through my brain just can't quite catch up to Taylor, who is already at the finish line, cheering me on. Taylor spent 3 years paying it forward to me, and I feel extremely lucky and grateful and happy to have gotten the chance to work with her, because her influence truly will last the rest of my life. The next time you look into a mirror, I want you to think about whose voice you have in your head. Whose voice is telling you that you are beautiful, or that you are smart, or just that you did a good job today? Whose voice reminds you to keep going, to keep studying, and to keep being beautiful? If you don't have a Taylor in your head to tell you those things, I want to share that privilege with you. You are beautiful. Thank you.
Our third speaker this evening has been a faculty member at UHSP since 2015. She currently serves as an associate professor teaching pharmacy administration, as well as the intern director of global health education. Please welcome Dr. Stephanie Lukas.
I love animals, all sizes, small, large. The furrier and fluffier, the better. Ever since I was a kid, I wanted to see them, I wanted to pet them, I wanted to go to wherever they came from and see them in the wild. This is how my connection to Africa really started. I thought, how cool would it be able to be to go out and see some of these animals? And as I started thinking about it, I decided to join the Peace Corps. So here I was in my mid-20s, joining the Peace Corps, going off, becoming an environmental volunteer and thinking I'd have the opportunity to do some environmental work and help these animals. And I got placed in a region called Hardcore Hanong. It was a loving nickname given. And let me tell you, it lived up to that nickname. I was on the side of a mountain in a village that didn't have any running water. We didn't have electricity. We didn't have mobile vehicles of any kind. I had one of the few bicycles. We were in a town of more than 4,000 people, most of which were farmers, and we had one tractor for the entire village. This is a picture, or a couple pictures of our village, to give you a sense of what it looked like, and to show you a woman who I became arguably best friends with in my village named Mama Paulina. Mama Paulina and I spent a lot of time hanging out in her kitchen. It was thatched roofed, and we'd sit over the charcoal and make some tea or different things. She was smart and kind and friendly and loving. And it was through my time hanging out with her that I really had an opportunity to see what was going on in my village through her eyes. I saw people struggle every day to access and fail to achieve and to access healthcare. I got to meet lots of other friends in the village, and one day one of my friends was telling me that her dad wasn't doing well because he had failed his TB regimen for the second or third time. And I knew that they lived in a one-room house. And when I say one room, I don't mean one bedroom. I mean one room for her and her father and their family, and in the evenings, their livestock to keep safe. And while I wasn't a pharmacist at the time, I knew that TB all in that small space was not good. And so I just kept thinking, this is so unfair. There's got to be a better way. I saw people go down and try to access healthcare, but we didn't have a doctor, we didn't have a nurse, we didn't have a clinic, we didn't have anything in our village, no pharmacist. So if you were fortunate enough and you had some money, you went down the side of the mountain and you went to the shop owner who was a businessman who had some connections with the local bus driver and brought in the medications, and you maybe took a good guess at what you thought you needed. You bought your antibiotics and took them for either as many days as you could afford or until you started feeling better, and then you saved the rest of what you bought for the next time somebody in your family got sick. Then I got sick. And I started off talking with my Peace Corps volunteer in my village, and eventually I went and worked my way through the entire healthcare system, all the way up to seeing some of the best doctors in the largest city, and eventually I got sent home back to the States for diagnosis and treatment. And again, I thought, this just isn't fair. And so when I came into Peace Corps, loving those animals, thinking that maybe I would make some type of difference, maybe come back and get a PhD in wildlife conservation or work for National Geographic or something, what I found was that the people in my village couldn't take care of themselves and their family. And if they weren't healthy, they definitely wouldn't be able to take care of the environment around them and ultimately improve the lives of the wildlife that they were taking care of. And so my journey really changed. I went from wildlife to global health. I went back to school and I got my doctor of pharmacy and my master's of public health. And I had an opportunity to start working in the field. I worked in Kenya, I worked and lived in Rwanda. Now I'm in St. Louis working with our international partners in numerous countries on multiple continents. It's been a really great experience. It's been a labor of love. I've enjoyed building all the relationships and working together with partners to help strengthen health systems. I've gotten to travel a lot, both for work and for myself, for fun. And what I've found as I've gone around the world is that we're really all the same, and we really want the same things deep down. As you guys know, I'm a faculty member, and so I like to have my students reflect all the time. And so I want to give you a second to reflect and ask you, what are the things that you hold most dear in your heart and most valuable? I would argue that as we go around the world, what I've seen that people hold the most dear is love, health, and safety. Fast forward to about 2 years ago and COVID hit. Our world was turned upside down. All these great global health partnerships that we were working with suddenly came to a halt as people were just trying to spend every day trying to survive. As I learned in Peace Corps on the side of that mountain, when you're spending every day trying to survive, your priorities change very quickly. That's what was happening back here at home. Everybody changed their priorities, both our partners and everybody at home, trying to figure out what could they do to protect their health, their safety, and hopefully protect their love. It's been 2 years now, and I would say we're tired. We're in a place where we're discontented. We've built up walls. We're disconnected. We're living in a state of constant vigilance. We've gone through trauma and we've gone through loss, and it's highlighted so many disparities. Disparities that, frankly, many of them existed before COVID. I think it's shown us a lot of the disparities that we didn't know existed, and unfortunately, it's made a lot of those disparities even worse. And so as we're coming in through this situation, we spend a lot of time on our health and our safety and trying to make sure that we could do everything we can to survive in those two aspects. But unfortunately, I think in a lot of ways, we've lost our love. That's sort of fallen off the spectrum. Now, as we start to get to a place where hopefully we're going to start to come out of some of the COVID pandemic, we need to find a way to recapture some of that love. Take a second and reflect on where you were before COVID and where you are now. What is your life like as you're trying just to survive? 2 years is a long time for this. But I want you to think about how many people all around the world, and when I say around the world, I mean both internationally and right here at home, have been spending every day trying to survive even before COVID.
for years, some people for lifetimes, for generations. How do we move forward? I would say that we need to move forward from a sense of humility. We need to remember that we don't understand what's going on in each other's lives, and we need to give each other the benefit of the doubt and, frankly, some grace. We need to figure out how we can act with more love and more kindness, be that in big or small ways. We need to think about our circle of influence, right? Who are the people that we can impact in our personal relationships? Who are the people that we can impact in our professional relationships? How can we extend a hand to our fellow man? So I would like to leave you with one final reflection and a challenge. I would like you to reflect on your journey in kindness and in love. And I would like you to think about how can you move forward and incorporate more love every day, both personally and professionally. That's my challenge to you. Thank you.
Our next speaker is a leader and an innovator. He's also a candidate for the Doctor of Pharmacy degree. Please welcome Simeon Robinson.
Assalamu alaikum. For those that may not know, it means peace be upon you. It's one of the formal greetings in my native country, the Gambia. As a child growing up in Gambia, I remember doing so many tedious tasks. I remember sorting through huge bags of rice for many hours for food and to be repackaged and resold. You would get a large plate and you would place a portion of rice on one side of the plate. You would go through each grain one by one, sorting out the debris and particles. Similarly, I remember picking leaves we call kereng kereng. In English, they're known as jute leaves. We would pick the leaves off the stems. The leaves would usually be boiled down to make a tasty soup. I remember my grandmother being extremely strict. Analytically strict. You had to be in a straight line 100% of the time. I would say it's good for a person most of the time, but it's okay. These things, experiences, are part of the foundation of who I am today. I remember being 10 years old and leaving the Gambia. I knew I was coming to America. As a kid, the only thing you can think of America is what you see in the movies. So I was thinking that I'd be coming to Hollywood. But I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I was excited of the unexpected possibilities. My first day in Atlanta, Georgia, one of the first things I noticed were the skyscrapers. As a child looking up, they almost appeared endless. Once I settled down, I immediately noticed how different I was from everyone else. I dressed differently, I spoke differently, and I couldn't even count the coins. I felt out of place. After a while, I adjusted and I made friends. As I grew older in Atlanta as a young Black man in America, I learned to embrace myself and be confident in who I am. Although I was different, I knew I had the option to choose how I carried myself. I learned to value myself. And so through my travels and where I am today, I think there are a couple important things that I should share. The first thing, take every opportunity you come across in life and believe in yourself. Don't take anything for granted. I recently went back to Gambia for the holidays, and I'm so much more grateful for so many things. Reliable energy, being able to use my credit or debit card, and a hot shower. I can remember how I felt taking my last cold shower. I felt so relieved knowing that my next one would be hot. But those are the simple things. We have better opportunities. Opportunities to grow as people every day, grow as professionals. We have the opportunity to make the next move and improve our lives. It's really easy to take these things for granted. Or take these opportunities and not believe in yourself without knowing that there are millions of people that won't have the opportunities you have every day. The second thing would be to challenge yourself. Face forward for yourself, for your community. Be truthful to yourself. Make the true improvements and progress you need for yourself and for the world to be a better place. Facing forward is an action. For me, facing forward is launching my mentoring program, Royalty Initiative. I believe I owe it to the community, and I know this will help our youth. I want to help guide the future in a positive direction. The last important message would be about understanding that every day we interact with different people and we have an opportunity to leave our mark on them. They may remember us or characterize us by this mark forever. As I mentioned, I was in Gambia over the holidays. At first, I wasn't familiar with the roads, so I constantly found myself asking random people to find places I needed to go. This particular night, I was needing directions. So I pulled over and I asked the random guy, "Do you know where Poco Loco is?" He responded by saying, "Assalamu alaikum, Nangadef," which means, "Peace be upon you. How are you?" I responded by saying, "I'm fine. How are you?" Then he eventually gave me directions. He was teaching me to be more polite. And I thank him, even though I may never see him again. What I took from it is that you can always be more polite, but more importantly, you may only get one opportunity to leave your mark on someone. So my question to you is, how are you going to leave your mark? In the classroom, on your job, with your family, and in the world. Peace be upon you.
Our final speaker this evening is a senior at UHSP. She's a member of the soccer and softball teams, a student researcher, as well as the teacher of a freshman seminar course. As she's about to graduate, she's very excited to pursue her PhD in microbiology and immunology. Please welcome Bear Wood.
Who here has heard the phrase, "You learn something new every day"? Usually it's used in a sense of you see something new or you see something you don't see every day. For example, For example, a road sign that me and my dad saw on our way to the salt flats in Utah. Watch for snakes and scorpions. We're from northern Indiana, so we had never seen this sign before. And I remember my dad saying, well, you learn something new every day, don't you? But have you ever thought about what you do learn every day? So every day is an opportunity to learn something new, to improve a certain set of skills or your knowledge. Learning can take place outside the classroom. Learning can take place in the garden, in the kitchen, in the garage, or by talking to someone else. That's where I know I've learned the most. Anything can be a learning opportunity. So you're surrounded with opportunities every day to learn something new. It's usually hard to see in a short period of time. So when you look at an old picture of yourself, do you say, I was so young back then. I was so skinny back then. Or, what was I wearing? Or do you look at an old picture of yourself and say, I've grown up a lot since then. I've learned a lot since then. You can go the easy route and say, since this photo, I learned how to do the quadratic equation. Maybe with a few reminders first. Or do you say, since this photo, I've learned how to be proud of myself, and I learned how to stay true to myself. So hopefully up until now, you noticed that those were old pictures of me. And seeing that this is my last semester at UHSP, I want to reflect on how much I've grown since I came here, how much I've changed since the first time I came on campus, and how many friendships I've developed over the past 4 years. I've learned a lot of life lessons since I've been here. The biggest life lesson that I've learned since I've been on campus is don't be afraid to ask for help. If you don't know the answer, I'm sure someone else does, whether this be classroom help, homework help, or some type of personal help. It's better to struggle together than it is to struggle alone. I've learned a lot since I've been at college and since this photo. I've learned how to live, laugh, and love. School is more than the degree that you get. It's hanging out with the same friends, eating at the same lunch table, and having something new to talk about every single day. This little kid is so proud of how far you've come, and they can't wait to see how far you go. So continue to face forward. Whether you're going through something easy or hard, know that it will change. If you're going through one of these various emotions on the board, know that it will change. Take it one step at a time. A new day is only 24 hours away. A new day is an opportunity to learn something new. So, thank you, UHSP, for allowing me to learn something new every day, for allowing me to be myself and to make friends, for allowing me to find my passion as a scientist. Thank you to the people who have stayed by my side and who have listened to me. It's okay loving learning something new every day. It allows you to find out what you're passionate about. It allows you to be just a little nerdy. Thank you.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. You guys can talk back to us. It's okay. I am Kim Hill, our Director of Academic Support here at UHSP, and also co-organizer with Sammy for our first ever TEDx event. And on behalf of Sammy and myself, we just want to thank you guys for coming, both in person and also our live stream audience. We've had a huge live stream, as well as you guys who took the time to come and support our event tonight. And we just hope that our speakers resonated with you in a way that would cause you to have a moment of reflection or even serve as a catalyst for additional conversation. But I will tell you guys, this has been a fun journey, and that's how we'll describe it, as a journey. And Sammy and ourselves, we've worked really hard, and I could not ask for a better co-organizer. Sammy, you've just been wonderful. Thank you so much for all of your support. And you guys, just so you know, we did not do this by ourselves. We have so many people behind the stage who also made this event possible. And so you guys can come down in front if you would like to. All of our behind the stage stage crew, as well as Juliana, who's our stage manager. You guys can give her a hand as she comes out. You guys, and also, I would like to welcome back our speakers as well. Come on back, you guys. Thank you so much. See y'all. Happy for you. So on behalf of all of us, we challenge you guys to face forward in every opportunity that you have. Face forward, be brave. Face forward with optimism. Face forward with innovation. And most importantly, face forward, as Dr. Lukas was saying, with love. Face forward. Thank you guys for a wonderful evening. Thank you guys.
Thank you.